77 minutes, the Ulvade School shooting. What we know now that we did not know before. This and more on what some people are calling the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. I'm your host, Charlie Crimebuster, and thank you so much for joining us. From the East Coast to the West Coast and beyond, we appreciate you being with us. And a special happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. On Facebook, we posted a special salute to the families of the fallen fathers of this past year. That's law enforcement officers that have been killed in the line of duty. Many of them were fathers, and they'll be greatly missed on this day. So we salute and honor with respect all those dear families. Hey, by the way, if you get a moment, please take a moment. Go to peacemakernetwork.com. If you enjoy our podcast, there you can support our efforts. You do that for as little as $3 a month. You become what we call a badge supporter. You not only help us in producing the podcast, but become a part in supporting law enforcement, first responders, and the military with your monthly support. These brave men and women deserve our support more today than ever. Well, our focus today is the Ulvade School shooting and why it took 77 minutes from the first shot to the shot that took out the school shooter. Now, we've already completed one podcast on that very subject, but now we have new information. New information that's come out since that shooting. Information that will help you and I to understand what really took place on that dreadful day when 19 precious children and 2 teachers lost their lives. Information that comes directly from the man who was in charge of the response. Well, we're going to get to that in a moment. Before we do, and because of the heavy stuff we usually discuss, well, we're going to first share with you our crazy crook story of the day. Hey, did you have any bad days this past week? Or is today a bad day for you? Well, check out our crazy crook story this week, and you will find that maybe, just maybe, your bad day wasn't nearly as bad as our crazy crook's day was this week. You see, this crazy crook had a very, very bad, terrible day. Well, meet our crazy crook of this week. You see, in a bumbling rampage, that covered 3 square miles of southwest Houston, Texas, lasted only an hour, though. Well, our crook, the police, they later gave him a nickname. They called him Lucky. Well, Lucky, you see, he robbed a McDonald's. Then he ran to a nearby auto parts store. There he took a hostage. Then he shot at the police officer. By the way, a bad idea. He then released that hostage, grabbed another one. This one, he'd actually had a car, and good old Lucky, boy, you thought he was on his way then, but you'll find out that he really wasn't that lucky. He forced that hostage to drive him to a housing complex. At the complex, he then kicked open the door. However, he just didn't expect that the resident of the door that he kicked down, that resident had a weapon to protect himself. So, not so lucky this time, got into a gunfight. A gunfight with that resident who refused to let not so lucky take control. So then, Lucky, or not so lucky, he tried to steal another car. But guess what? He wasn't lucky enough to even get that car by the complex's electronic security gate there at the housing complex. Couldn't get through the gate. So then, our crazy crook, he runs to a nearby Dairy Queen. There, he tried to hijack a beef truck. Only thing, the driver there, he beat Lucky up and took away Lucky's weapon. So, with a bruised body, no weapon, our not-so-lucky suspect, he then escaped and ran to a residential area. He began to jump over fences. My friend, I tell you, you really can't make these things up. Because he landed in one backyard and he was attacked by a ferocious terrier dog. So guess what? Our crazy crook, he jumps another fence, and he lands now where he's attacked. You can't make it up. He's now attacked by a pair of German Shepherds. Well, he managed to get away from the German Shepherds, but he was taken into custody. Into custody by police, and he was charged with 6 felonies. And it's easy to see why this crazy crook was branded by the name of Lucky, who became not so lucky. And that, my friend, is our crazy crook story of the day. Well, now back to our main focus. What really happened in that 77 minutes from the start of this school shooting until the shooter was taken down? Well, on our past podcast, which was a couple of weeks ago, we shared with you the timeline of this shooting, that shooting of the grammar school there in Texas. At the moment, it was breaking news, and we were going on information that was brought to us by authorities that were there on the scene. Now, it is understandable that certain things were said then that had to be clarified later. However, let's begin today by summarizing some of what we were told by Texas Public Safety Director Steve McDraw. We were told that at 11:27, a teacher propped open the door to retrieve her phone or something, and that was the way that the gunman got entrance in the school. Well, now we have new information that news was not correct. Surveillance cameras say the teacher did go out to get her phone, but she got it in order to call 911, and then she shut the door. The only problem was? Well, the problem was that door malfunctioned. It did not lock. Now remember that. This is a key issue later on in the podcast. Well, the main takeaway from that previous news, well, it was that the chief of police there, that guy by the name of Steve Arredondo, well, he directed the response like it was a barricaded suspect rather than an active school shooter. So it was concluded that this was the reason why it took 77 precious minutes in which lives were lost for the police to get to the shooter. And as you can imagine, well, this brought an onslaught of criticism about the school chief there, Arredondo. And for many days, the school chief, well, he was not making any comments at all about what really happened during that 77 minutes. And the more that he waited to comment, well, the more of the country's disdain was being reaped on this school chief. Well, but eventually, the school chief, Arredondo, he did speak out. And he did speak out about that, what happened during that day. And we're going to share with you that information in just a moment. But first, it is important for us to know who Arredondo really is. You see, he is identified as the Ulvade School District chief police there, the school police. And on the website, they say that he has nearly 3 decades of law enforcement experience. That's according to the school district. And he was just recently elected to a seat on Uvalde's City Council. Now, board trustees for the school district, they approved him as the head of the department back in 2020. He was the district chief of police. And the superintendent, Hal Harrell, he said in a Facebook post at the time that the board, quote, was confident of our selection and impressed with Arredondo's experience, knowledge, and community involvement. Now, interesting enough, just about a year ago, this chief sat before the Uvalde School Board, and he let members know that the school system police force needed to be ready to face an active shooter. He went on to say that the pandemic had cut into trainings for his 6-member department. And while officers had completed a program the previous summer, he said they needed more, as many as possible. He went on to say it's just like golf. If you play once a year in 6 months, well, you're not all that great. He said that on a YouTube video about the March 2021 meeting. He stressed he wanted the neighborhood law enforcement agencies to have a sense of the layout of the school campuses. That's in this small city of 15,000 people. He went on to say if something major were to happen, he did predict that off-duty personnel would arrive as part of the response. Well, my friend, just a few weeks ago, his force's readiness and his leadership of this small department, they were tested. They were tested when an 18-year-old with an assault assault-like rifle, stormed an elementary school, killed 19 children and 2 teachers inside a classroom at Ulvade Elementary School. And, my friend, it took over an hour for police that was led by Border Patrol tactical agents to burst in and kill the gunman. Now, according to state police, Arredondo, in his role as incident commander, he told officers to wait for backup and better equipment before rushing to the classroom. Now, a grieving community, well, they're all asking questions about Arredondo and his role in the shooting. And many are divided over whether one of their own made a fateful decision that may have cost children's lives. So that's where we were on our past podcasts. But since that time, now our chief, well, he's spoken out. He's revealed to us new information that was not published before. We're going to share that with you. But right now, it's time for us to recognize what we call on Charlie Crimebuster our courageous citizen story. This comes to us from West Virginia. There was when a woman, now get this, a woman fatally shot a man Wednesday night who had begun firing an AR-15 rifle into a crowd of dozens. Now, Charleston police, they identified that man as 37-year-old Dennis Butler. You see, the people were attending a birthday and a graduation party that was outside a apartment there in the area. At Butler, he had been at the apartment complex earlier in the evening. He was there in a vehicle, and he was warned to slow down because children were playing. That's according to authorities. He left, but then guess what? He later returned, parked in front of the complex, had an AR-15, and he started shooting. Now, the woman was attending the West Virginia party, and our courageous citizen, this unknown lady, she drew a pistol. She fired on Butler. Now, thankfully, no one attending the party was injured. The woman, she did wait for police to arrive, and she and several witnesses, they cooperated with the investigation. Now, get this. Instead of running from the threat, she engaged the threat, and she saved several lives that night. That's what the chief of detectives told the news outlets on Thursday. He went on to say no charges would be filed against the woman. In an interview with the Metro News, well, the police chief there, Tyke Hunt, he said that Butler was a convicted felon. He had been to prison a few times. He said Butler illegally possessed the gun he fired, adding that the matter was still under investigation. So, my friend, a simple lady whose name was protected in the news, and we will not give you her name as well. We'll protect her identity. But this lady, this unknown woman, a good woman with the gun, stopped a bad man with a bigger gun. And that, my friend, is Charlie Crimebuster's courageous citizen of the week. Now back to our main focus. We're talking about the fact that the chief now, Arredondo, he gave an interview to the Texas Tribune where he spoke out about his part in the shooting. He had said previously he wanted to wait till some of the funerals had taken place, not to take away from the grief of these precious parents. But this past week, on June the 9th, he spoke out. He and his attorney granted an exclusive interview to the Texas Tribune. There, they detailed their version of what happened inside Ulvade Elementary School on May the 24th, when a shooter killed 21 people. Arredondo communicated with the Tribune there through a phone interview, an in-person interview with his attorney, and multiple emails. He described the moments when he first arrived at the school and prepared to face off against the gunman. He reported that as he entered the school, he heard gunshots, and that he was unable to break through a locked door to take down the shooter. Arredondo, who, by the way, is now currently in hiding, well, he has been publicly criticized for his role leading the law enforcement response in the school. That is because it did indeed take 77 minutes, more than an hour, after arriving on the scene for law enforcement to get into the classroom and kill the gunman. Now, here are some important things that I took from his interview. This week, he and his attorney, who granted the interview, they said a number of things. He described the moments when he entered there and when he had to face off there. He said he heard gunshots, so he was unable to break through that locked door. And he went on to say that even though he had been criticized for the slow response, he said he had been incorrectly, now get this, labeled, first of all, the incident commander. And see, at a news conference, Department of Safety Director Steve McCraw, he identified the chief there as the incident commander, said it was the chief's decision to treat the gunman as a barricaded suspect rather than an active shooter. And McCraw went on to say it was the wrong decision, period. Well, now, Arredondo, he speaks out. He said he never made the call to stand down or to treat the incident as a barricaded suspect. He said, I didn't issue any orders. He said, I called for assistance. I asked for an extraction tool to open the door. Now, the National Incident Management System, which does guide all levels of a government on how to respond to mass emergency events, they say very clearly that the first person on the scene, that person is the incident commander. That incident commander, by the way, remains in charge until they relinquish the role or they're incapacitated. Now, George Hyde, he's an attorney for Arredondo. He acknowledged those guidelines, but he said that Arredondo's initial response to the shooting was not that of an incident commander, but get this, that of a first responder. He went on to say once he became engaged and intimately involved in the front line of this case, he is one of those that is in the best position to continue to resolve the incident at the time. He goes on to say, while it is easy to identify him as incident commander because of the NIMS process and practicality, you see here, he was not in that capacity to be able to run the entire organization. Now, much also has been reported about how Arredondo did not have a radio with him inside the school. That prevented him from being able to receive and relay details of other law enforcement. I might add, crucial details. Well, Arredondo, he says that the decision was intentional. He didn't say he forgot it. He said he told the Texas Tribune that he expected to confront the gunman. He wanted both hands free to hold his gun, ready to aim and fire quickly and accurately, and that he left 2 radios outside the school. He went on to say that he believed that carrying the radios would slow him down. He said one had a whip-like antenna that would hit him as he ran. The other had a clip that he knew would cause it to fall off of his tactical belt during a long run. Well, another criticism that the chief faced was the length of time it took him to get into a classroom. He said that when he got to the school, he remembers the gunman firing a burst of shots from inside a classroom. He went on to say he described that classroom door as reinforced with a hefty steel jamb, designed to keep an attacker on the outside from forcing their way in. But with the gunman inside the room, that took away law enforcement's ability to immediately kick in the door and confront the shooter. He went on to say, finding no way to enter the room, he called the police dispatch from his cell phone. He asked for a SWAT team, sniper, and an extraction tool, like a fire hook, to open the door. Well, those tools never materialized. Arredondo, he had also asked for keys that could open the door. Eventually, there was a janitor that provided 6 keys. Arredondo went on to say he tried each on a door adjacent to the room where the gunman was, but it didn't open. Later, another key ring, with between 20 and 30 keys, it was brought to Arredondo. He said, I was praying one of them would open up the door each time I tried a key. None did. Well, eventually, the officers on the north side of the hallway, they did call Arredondo's phone, told him they'd gotten a key that would open the door. You see, without any way to get into the classroom, the chief said he and others, they worked on getting other kids out of the school. It is not that someone said stand down. That's what the attorney said. It was right now we can't get in there until we get the tools, so we're trying to do what we can to save lives. So what was that? Well, it was to evacuate the students and the parents and the teachers out of the other rooms. Arredondo told the officers to start breaking glass windows from the outside and other classrooms to get those kids out. He wanted to avoid the students coming into the hallway, where he feared too much noise would attract the gunman's attention. Now, there was one point during that time, according to this article and to this interview, that one of the officers noticed that the chief was not wearing body armor. Worried for the chief's safety, the officer offered to cover for him while he ran out of the building to get it. I'll be very frank, he said. He said that Arendando said, "F you, I'm not leaving this hallway." He wasn't going to leave without those kids. Well, now, my friend, while this all sounds noble and brave, I must take the time to critique these statements. You see, there's simply too much at risk. While it is easy to Monday morning quarterback, well, the cost of this game and the lives of children, they're too much not to do so. First, in response to his not knowing that he was incident commander. Now, my friend, this is not some rookie, but this is a man who has 30 years of experience. But the excuse that he gave that he did not know that he was incident commander, well, my friend, I got to tell you, it was rookie-like. You see, he has enough training, particularly since his focus is on school safety, he would know the rules of an incident command. And if he did not want to be the incident commander, if he was focused on other things, well, don't you know, friend, he had 77 minutes to hand that off to someone else. 77 minutes to let someone else take the responsibility. And at this point in the analysis, that might have saved lives had he handed off that assignment. Someone else could have figured out how to get that door open a whole lot quicker than 77 minutes. And while this may be a cruel statement, my friend, his response, it simply does not resonate with me. If he did not know that he was in command, then let me ask you another question. Why was it that he was the one who eventually told the Rapid Response Border Patrol to make entry? Yes, he is quoted as saying, "If y'all ready to go, go right now." That was right before they made entry. If he wasn't the incident commander, why was he the one that commanded them to enter? You see, you can't have it both ways. I believe that this idea that he was just a first responder rather than an incident commander, I believe it's just good lawyer speak for an excuse. Next, let's talk about the radio that he said he left behind, that kept him out of touch with the rest of the responders, that may have brought forth the tools that he needed to breach immediately. My friend, any police officer knows that the radio is a vital part of police work. Guess what? There are radios that actually have cases that fit on your belt that allows you to keep your radio while you have both hands free. There are even radios that you can clip on your belt that keeps on your radio on you, with you as you run and as you use both of your hands. It's used every day in those type of situations in police work. So, my friend, that one again just does not hold water. Along with that, let's talk a moment about the body armor that he leaves behind. Frankly, I got to tell you, my friend, his statement was self-serving. Sure, he's willing to draw fire while somebody else comes in and takes on the gunman. But let me ask you this. Would it be better to do that, or would it be better to be able to sustain a shot and continue to engage the gunman rather than waiting for someone who may or may not show up after he is bleeding on the sidewalk from drawing the fire of the shooter? Again, my friend, even those people who work in plain clothes, they have body armor readily available in their trunks. And get this, they can put it on in mere seconds. They put that body armor on so they can stay in the fight, so they can take down the shooter. Be far better to take the shooter down than to just say, hey, I'm going to draw fire, let somebody shoot me, and maybe that'll give time for somebody else to show up. Much better to stay in the fight. So now let's talk about the door. The one that took 77 minutes to get through. Well, now we have breaking news that, if true, it shows a whole new level of incompetency into this incident. This is according to an article from the San Antonio Express. The article goes on to say that surveillance footage now shows, now get this, police never tried to open the door to the two classrooms at the elementary school in the 77 minutes between the time a gunman entered the rooms, massacred the people, and by the time they stormed in. That's what San Antonio Express News reported, citing a law enforcement source close to the investigation. You see, my friend, quote now, investigators believe that the 18-year-old gunman who killed 19 children and 2 teachers at the school, they believe he could not have locked the door to the connected classrooms from the inside. That's according to the source. You see, all classrooms at the Robb Elementary, well, they are so designed to lock whenever you close them. Remember we told you about the fact that the lady closed the door, but there was a malfunction that did not work, so the door was not locked? Police might have assumed that the door was locked, but the latest evidence suggests that it may have been open the entire time, possibly due to a malfunction. That's what the newspaper reported. The source went all to say again that the officer also had access to a Halligan. That's a tool that could have been used to open the door even though it was locked. You see, all fire departments have them. He could have radioed for one to bring it to them, but oh, wait a minute. Remember, he did not have a radio with him. Finally, a custodian, he brings a large key ring. Arredondo said he tried dozens of those keys, but none worked. But he was not trying those keys to the classrooms of 111 and 112. He was trying those keys to other doors that was near to him to open it. Nope, while it may have been brave in heart for him to do that, it wasn't very smart in the head. So there you have it. Here to think while in crisis. Well, my friend, it's a weakness. Just a weakness that a leader cannot afford in such a time. My friend, it's not just my opinion about the actions of this chief. You see, the tributes, they spoke to 7 law enforcement experts about this chief's description of the police response. All but one of those 7 said that a serious lapse of judgment occurred. Most strikingly, they said, running into the school without radios, failing to take charge of the situation. Well, they say the chief appears to have contributed to a chaotic approach in which officers were deployed inappropriate tactics, adopted a defensive posture, and failed to coordinate their actions, thereby wasting precious time as students and teachers remained trapped in 2 classrooms of a gunman who continued to fire his rifle. Now, Steve L. James is a police tactics expert, former assistant chief of police of Springfield, Missouri. He says it's highly unusual for a police officer to intentionally ditch his radio while answering a call. He went on to say, "I've never heard of anything like that in my life." Now, he also adds that it's inconceivable that Arredondo's officers did not have a plan, get this, to access any room or building on campus at any given moment, given that the school district, well, it makes up the entirety of the tiny force's jurisdiction. So there you have it. So now, what can we learn? Well, first and foremost, make sure that your law enforcement know how to respond to an active shooter on campus. Make certain they know how to get to him quickly, wherever that shooter may be on campus at any time, and that they know it in advance. Make sure they practice that response on a regular basis. If not, we'll get that administration out and get an administration in that will. It's as simple as that. Next, let me encourage you to talk to your own kids about an active shooter. Now, do it in a way that does not scare them. Remind them that it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that it would ever happen to them. But if it does, teach them what to do. To run away from the shots. Hide if you can't run away. And if there's no other course, we'll join others in fighting. You see, on this school shooting, I heard of a little girl who actually played dead. She even rubbed some blood about her in a way to disguise herself as someone who had already died. And let me also take a moment now to remind you, please hug your kids tightly. Let them know you love them every single day. And let's also take time to remember, since this is Father's Day when we're releasing this episode, that there are some fathers today that are going to have a very, very difficult time. Those who lost precious children in this senseless tragedy there in Texas. So love your kids, hold them close to you. And until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. For the life you save, well, it may be your very own.